This is the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. If you're just joining us for the first time, this is the place you want to be if you want to publish a book. There is no stone unturned here, I tell you. We talk to first-time authors and some authors who have already been published, and they tell it like it is. If you've had writer's block, you're not alone. If you felt possessed because ideas just keep coming and coming and coming into your head, and you get up in the middle of the night and you have to write them down, we've talked to people just like it. They feel the same way. If you've created a work of art and you've tried to get an agent, tried to get a publisher, and you feel like you're just spinning your wheels, welcome to the club, the Page Publishing Book Club. Honestly, there's nothing we haven't heard. And then again, as soon as I say that, somebody's going to come on and blow me away. I just know it. So maybe you'll be that somebody. On the line, we have Richard Yanez. Hi, Richard. Why don't you tell us the name of your book?
It's Ricky, Your Wings.
It almost sounds like you're presenting wings to somebody.
Well, in the end, this character, Ricky, he takes flying lessons, glider flying lessons, and his girlfriend buys him a pair of wings, and he has an accident, and he gets killed, and she rushes towards his plane when it's crashed, and she's all hysterical and crying, and she sees his wings laying on the ground, and she picks up the wings, and she stretches up her hand, and she says, "Ricky, your wings," because earlier in life, he's telling her that he's studying Eastern philosophy. He tells her their belief is that when you die, your spirit hovers above the body, and that's what she does. She picks up the wings and she stretches her hand up in the air and she says, "Ricky, your wings."
That sounds so sad, Richard.
There are three characters: Raymond, Johnny, and Ricky. And I took this out of my life, and it's so much fun to read. You know, when I was writing it, I was laughing and laughing because it brought back a lot of memories. You know, but it's a very beautiful story. It's for all ages. You know, there's so much violence now in life that I thought maybe if I wrote some of my life, it would be nice for the public, you know. People need something different, you know. There's kids going into schools now with guns and killing people, and this is unheard of.
Yeah, it's pretty upsetting.
It's got a little bit of a spiritual adventure in it, you know, and that's good, you know. That's what we need now in this world. There's so many wars going on now that you know, it's unbelievable.
So was there any particular reason you wrote this book now?
I didn't write it now. I wrote it back in the 80s when my beautiful wife, 38 years old, she was dying from a brain tumor. And I was trying to make enough money where I could hire a good surgeon, you know, one of the top surgeons, you know. But I mailed it. I mailed it back in the 80s. I mailed it to New York, but they mailed it back about a month later, saying that they only wanted experienced writers. But I knew I had a good story, and I just stored it away. I've had it for about 30 years.
So you finally found Page, and you got it published after 30 years.
Yes. I knew, like I say, I knew I had a good story. So then I stored it, thinking maybe one of these days I can have it published, you know, and that lucky day came. It came through Page, you know.
Did you hear an advertisement or what? How'd you find them?
No. It came out on TV, and I couldn't believe it. And I was watching TV, and then Page came and, "Hey, if you have a manuscript, mail it to us," you know. And boy, I grabbed a pen and a piece of paper, and I started writing the phone number. I feel very, very lucky about this, you know.
Have other people read it? Are you getting any feedback?
A Page mailed me about 15 copies. I mailed some to the family, but So I'm kind of private. I don't go out much.
You're just happy it's published.
Yes, I am. I am. Faith did a beautiful job on this, and I'm very excited about how it came out. It took 30 years, but you know what? It was published.
Hey, better late than never, Richard.
Yeah, you got that right, Alice. You have that right.
And you know what? The fact that it was published, the fact that it's out there, sometimes that's reward enough. And you know what? We have talked to people who want to quit their jobs. They want to become writers. They want to get famous. They want to write screenplays. They want to make a ton of money. And you know who you are. And you know what? That's okay. But for Richard, writing this book was a spiritual adventure, just like he said. And he's sharing this with his friends and his family, and he's getting a lot of comfort in that. So good for you, Richard. Our next author is a retired teacher. Adrian Ball is on the line. He wrote Class Dismissed. So tell us about your book, Adrian.
On all of the experiences I had, 55 years in the classroom, 3 years teaching a lot of subjects because I have a number of majors. But in the beginning, I taught social studies, which would be history, government, world government, geography. And then after the Russians put up a satellite, they asked if someone could be in the science department. I volunteered to teach biology and physiology. So I've taught an array of subjects at Beverly Hills High School.
What's the deal with this satellite? You were teaching Russians?
The Russians threw up a satellite, and we didn't feel as prepared because we were obviously felt behind them in science progress.
Okay.
They wanted to increase the science courses in the high school.
What year are you talking about?
52.
Yeah, I'm thinking the 1950s. So
Right.
this is your experience in upping the ante in science and math in the classroom.
That's correct.
Why did you decide to write a book about that?
It's actually how education should be carried out. In other words, it will be, or it is, controversial enough to make people discuss it and talk about it. And the experiences I've had in the classroom and also the teaching philosophy that I had.
You know, you're talking about teaching and philosophy, and, I did a story recently about teacher tenure being under attack across the country, and it just seems like every state is trying to get rid of teacher tenure. They're trying to lower salaries. They're trying to bust the unions.
Well, that's what it's all about. It's all about all of those things you just mentioned. And what makes it controversial, I don't believe in tenure. I feel if a teacher's not a good teacher, they ought to be fired.
Ooh, interesting. You don't believe in tenure. So you think good teachers don't need protection?
No. They can go out and get a better job. They can go out and sell real estate. They could do anything else. But in other words, this is the way I always felt. And I taught in 3 districts, and Beverly Hills is a very outstanding district. A lot of people aren't going to agree with me at all.
When did you leave teaching?
I've been out 10 years.
Okay.
However, all of the years I was in, and I was in 3 different districts, but 51 of those years was at Beverly Hills High School, which happened to be a wealthy school district.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, let me ask you this, Adrian. I went out on the street recently, and we were doing a story dealing with teachers, and I was asking them if they felt like they were being attacked. And I interviewed a kid who had just graduated from college, and he said the problem today is that older teachers won't leave the classroom soon enough, and they don't understand students the way younger teachers do. And they're hanging on for dear life and hanging on to their jobs and not moving on fast enough. What do you say to that?
Actually, I don't believe any of that. Actually, if they didn't want me in teaching, I'd leave. I'd go out and get a better job because the pay isn't that high that would say, oh, I just can't lose this job.
Right.
So I'd get a better job. That's where my book gets controversial because a lot of them are mentioning what you're telling me, which makes it more interesting. They wonder why I would feel the way I do. And I just don't feel that a job should be that secure for anyone if they they don't do a good job, fire them.
Adrian, I can tell you a lot of politicians would probably agree with you. Now, I know they would agree with you because teacher tenure is a hotly debated issue right here in the New York metro area, especially over in New Jersey, where Governor Christie is practically waging war on teachers. But then again, I come from a family of teachers, and I can tell you they would engage you in a heated debate over protections for decent teachers, and they would argue. So you've definitely hit a nerve here, Adrian. We're going to lighten up a little bit with our next author. Christopher Blum wrote a kind of bucket list for golfers, right? It's called Playing All 50, Golf and More.
Well, obviously it's about golf, but it's about a whole lot more. I had back in 1997, I was turning about 50 and wanted something new in my life, and decided to take on a quest of kind of like a bucket list of playing golf in all 50 states. I thought it was very doable. I had over half the states in already. I was a lifelong golfer and enjoyed the game so much, and that's the way it started. So I started playing golf in every state, and I would document where I played and took pictures. And started out I was going to just write a picture book, show pictures of places that I played. And then I had so many great stories that I was going to do a storybook. And so one thing led to another, and all of a sudden now I'm writing a book with both pictures and great stories about the places that I played and the adventures that I had.
So does each golf course have its own character?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In different parts of the country are obviously different types of characteristics. For example, up in North Dakota, something that most people don't ever realize is the sand traps up there are black coal slag. They're not sand at all. They're coal slag. Black is coal. And and Hawaii has a different flavor than New York, and Florida is a sand-based, whereas up in farther north it's more of a dirt-based substance on the ground, and so they play a little differently, and it's obviously a lot of fun. Each and every course has its own character.
And each one presents a different challenge for a golfer?
Yes, relatively it's the same, but as I say many times in my book, because I only play a lot of these courses one time, a lot of times you have to play a course more than once to really be able to play it well and score on the course. But yes, every course is different.
So when you say you have some amazing adventures, is it between you and your golf club and your, what?
Well, sometimes they occurred on the golf course. Like one time I met this, I just used South Dakota as an example. I met this wonderful gentleman on the course. He was 80 years old, and he was playing golf. He'd been playing there for 50 years, and he wanted to know if I wanted to go through and play by myself or play with him. And I wanted to play with him because he was such a great gentleman, and he taught me so much about the course that he played all his life and his great story. So he told me things, and so I shared that in the book. And later on that day and that trip up in South Dakota, I got to go up on top of Mount Rushmore and actually climbed up the side of Mount Rushmore with a ranger and a couple other folks on a special tour on this project I was on, and actually ended up on the backside of the head of George Washington, and you could see all the monuments and everything over my shoulder. So all these pictures and stories are shared in the book.
So that was the and more.
And more.
That's the and more.
Yeah.
What's the difference between, let's say, a Baltusrol or, these golf courses that are the places where they play all the tournaments and where Tiger Woods plays? Are they what makes them so special?
Well, they're obviously very quality courses. The way they're manicured, the way they're set up for the pro players, they have to have a certain criteria that the PGA would require, and characteristics that would be beneficial to put on a good show for the public, and that'd be a good challenge for a professional golfer. I have played some of those courses, but many of these courses I played are courses that I've just had access to, are public courses, public links that the pros don't necessarily play at. But they're very good courses, they're excellent courses, and they all have a story to tell. And they're not a Pebble Beach, But for example, I went up at Circling Raven up in Coeur d'Alene, just a diamond in the rough. I would have never known about it unless I had this quest to go do this, and just enjoy it thoroughly. That type of a course.
So these are golf courses you would never imagine or maybe never know about had you not talked about it in this book. Can't you send it to like golf courses? Don't they have, gift shops and stuff?
Yep, I could send it to golf courses, which I have sent it to a few of the golf courses. Obviously, that's a one way to get it out there and market it. I think the big thing is for them to know that they can order it and find it online, and to be able to promote the book. I mentioned, like I said, there's at least 50 golf courses. There's more than that in there, one from each state. But I highlight each state. I highlight one golf course, and then I mention other ones. And if there's really interest, and I have a good story to tell, I tell about more than one golf course in each state. So, yeah, there's a lot of golf courses out there, and one way to get the word is to get the golf courses the book and let them see it, and hopefully they'll pick it up.
All right. Well, good luck, Christopher. You had a good experience with Paige?
Excellent experience. I wouldn't have been able to do it without it. I didn't mention this before, but I did self-publish the book by myself, and found it was just too expensive to be able to market it. People wouldn't pay that much money for the book, and I thought Paige did an excellent job in leading me through and helping me make the book affordable, promotable, and a better read than I had it before. So I really appreciate all the efforts of Paige Publishing.
Well, you're welcome, Christopher. Look at that. Another happy Paige Publishing customer, huh? Without prompting, I am proud to say. I am not a prompter. I don't have to prompt. Paige has a lot of happy customers, and we're going to talk to a few more when we come back. So you're going to stay with me, right? You're not going anywhere? Don't touch that dial. This is the Paige Publishing Book Club.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Paige Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books. And unlike most publishers, Paige Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them. And they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Paige Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything: copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Paige Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Paige Publishing at 800-204-6099.
Welcome back to the Paige Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Online, we have Shirlane Jackson. And she's actually finishing up a project her mom started with Trails of Many Tales. Take us from the beginning, Shirlane.
It's telling the story of a great uncle and the life that he lived and the way he lived his life. Now, my mother wrote the book because it was her great uncle, and she was a favorite of his. And she always remembered how he treated her so well, and she wanted to remember him and how he lived and how he was so dedicated into whatever he put himself into doing, and how loving and caring that he was. She just wanted to remember him and how it inspired her to become a loving person towards her children and grandchildren.
What did he do?
He helped people travel across the river in the country, way in the country. It was a river in between the two counties, and people had to ride across the river on a little boat, and that's what he done. He would people would come to the edge of the river, and he would drive the boat back and forth, taking them to each side.
Where was this river?
It's called Boggy River in a small town outside in the country called Hugo, Oklahoma. And when he was doing the job, he came into some distant relative that was into some bad business. And being that his character was such a caring person, he easily got into a ring of trouble because he was trying to help these cousins of ours out and by giving them a ride down the river, and they was carrying moonshine. But at the time, he didn't know that that's what they was carrying, the moonshine, until actually trouble had started, which was the main cousin that was selling the moonshine one of the buyers got into it. They started shooting at each other, and that's how he got involved in that. And they just kind of placed him in between that because he was giving them a ride on the river. So he ended up hiding out for a while, and while he was hiding out, he was sneaking and seeing my mother, telling her how much he loved her and cared about her, but he had to stay in hiding to keep from himself getting in trouble and his family from getting in trouble. And that's one reason she really cared and loved him, because all the time that he was in hiding and he was trying to clear his name, he never forgot about his family and her, and he would make sure he would have enough money or try to get them enough money to survive, because my mom and her mom, they was really poor and was barely surviving, and he was doing his best to help them survive on a day-to-day basis.
Is your mom still alive?
No, my mother passed away a week before Page Publishing had called to say that she was going to get her book published. She passed away last year, July.
Oh, Charlene, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and when we came back from the hospital after she had passed away, we was going through her things, and I was listening at her answer machine, and the call from Page Publishing, and they had asked her to call them back because they was interested in publishing her book. And I called them back, and they informed me that they wanted to publish her book, and that they could publish her book through my name and help carry her name on. And so that's what my sister and we are doing. We're trying to carry her name on.
That's a nice thing to do. So why the Trails of Many Tales?
Because it's so many. It's a story about how to survive while you're going through times of trials and tribulations, and how you it's like a day-to-day, your day-to-day life. You're just traveling through your day-to-day life, and it's like a different story every day. I'm pretty sure some things become repetitive in your life, but some days it's just a trail of different tales that just can happen to you, and those kind of experiences stay with you, and you sit down and think, oh, remember what happened to me on that day?
Our lives are trails of different tales, when you think about it. And talk about fate. Charlene's mom found out Page accepted her book the day she died. I mean, think about that. And now Charlene is making sure that her mom's dream becomes a reality. That's really cool. Good stuff there. Finally, Travail Curry, a first-time author from right here in New York City. It's called Overwhelmed. So tell us what your book's about, Travail.
My book is basically about trying to help people from have been abused or verbally abused, on the topic of verbal abuse and the effects it has on the mind, and anyone who's had an abusive relationship. It's just a book of poems, and they're here to build people's confidence and things of that nature.
That's interesting. You should say verbal abuse, because I don't think people realize that verbal abuse can be as damaging as physical abuse.
Right. Yes. A person comes in, let's say, for instance, a child has a parent who's abusive, and they come in from work and they misplace and project upon the child the anger that they feel. It's a threat. It's a threat to livelihood, or they'll say, if you say anything, we're going to tell them that it was your fault. And this is just like an assertiveness. It's to build assertiveness. It's meant to be fun, hip, something savvy for children for not just children, but anyone who's been in an abusive situation to deal with. Yes.
Were you in an abusive situation?
But no, I was never in an abusive situation, but I see it. I see it here. Some people call it joking. they try to do it with a bit of humility. Like they try to make it like a punchline, a joke, or it's done over and over again to the point that it becomes like sort of like normal for the child or for the child or the person to believe that that's the normal way of talking. Then you have this abusive circle where people are degrading each other, holding each other back, and misinforming each other. That's what it does. It gives you the wrong idea of a wrong concept about life, about what's going on. That there are people who care. There are people who are different. When you're surrounded by things like that, when you're surrounded by negativity, it's hard to see the positive in anything that's going on out here. And it just gives a person an unrealistic view, and verbal abuse takes away plenty of people opportunities because they don't have the skills, the social skills necessary to survive out here.
Do you work with abused kids? I mean, how did you become interested in this?
I came along. I worked with children with disabilities, and I also, the thing is to try to give them skills that are appropriate, situationally appropriate. Whereas, you talk to them now and try to give them skills that they can apply to life, and that's basically what I'm at. Trying to find appropriate terms and it's useful because, when something is useful and you can see it in a situation where you can actually put it into play, it's more of a chance of you using these skills that you have acquired. That's what Overwhelmed is. It's meant to be hip, savvy, something contemporaneous, something that's going on now that maybe they can use to assert themselves.
So you want to empower kids? I
want to empower those who've been abused and just sort of give them a context of what is going on with their verbal abuse.
Have you had any luck getting it out there? Or you?
I've given out a couple of copies to like my supervisor and things of that nature. And it's not just for children; it's for adults also who have been in abusive relationships. There are a lot of abusive relationships going on out there also. Gangs and people who have been bullied, picked on in school, picked on at a job, cyberbullying. It's just, that's what Overwhelmed is, to give you a cool, savvy way to be assertive and to express yourself in those situations where you're challenged by that. Or, we all taught to have a morale, and we all have things that are socially accepted and things that are survival skills that we come up with to help us, that comfort us when we come in a situation where we're threatened.
I think we've all been in situations where we feel threatened or overwhelmed, and it's nice you've written a kind of handbook, to try and help people through these challenging times. It's interesting, too, that Travail talks about verbal abuse. We hear a lot about physical abuse, but words do hurt. They do, and they can damage people for life, and, especially if we don't know how to deal with them. So like we said, here's another tool for the toolbox. And that's about all the time we have for tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, my new best friends, my Page published authors. Come on back next week right here on 710 WOR for another edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. Don't feel overwhelmed. Don't feel like you can't do it. If you've got something to say, write it down, and you could be the next guest on the Page Publishing Book Club. Have a great weekend.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books. And unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them. And they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything: copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.